Author of the book, Dr. David Feldman, is also an expert in the psychological study of hope, and he joins us now. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So we all have traumatic experiences in life that change us forever, and you make the interesting distinction that while some people, as a result of a great tragedy, experience serious psychological consequences, others redirect their focus and end up accomplishing extraordinary things, meeting goals they never would have met otherwise. You call these people super survivors. Help us understand, though, why do people react so differently to life-changing events?
Well, I think we're all familiar with post-traumatic stress disorder, which is a real issue for people following trauma. You know, the nightmares, the flashbacks, etc. But I think what a lot of people aren't aware of is that although PTSD is a real serious issue that deserves a lot of conversation and treatment, only about 20 to 30% of people who experience a trauma end up with PTSD. But the statistic another statistic a lot of people don't know is that 50 to 80% of people in the aftermath of trauma end up growing in some way. They may see the sky as bluer and the grass as greener. They may discover new friends. They may deepen in their spirituality. They may discover new paths in their life. And in our book, what we did was we interviewed, actually we interviewed over 100 people, but we ended up telling the stories and looking into the science related to 17 cases where people revolutionized their life and dramatically changed their life. And one of the things that we found that was really common to all of them was a particular kind of forward-looking yet realistic thinking called grounded hope.
Dr. Feldman, I couldn't agree more with your premise. I lost my father unexpectedly at age 22, and that actually caused me to view life through a totally different lens. I viewed a lot of the things that people fret about as totally meaningless. Oh my gosh, my cell phone's not charged, or oh my gosh, what am I going to wear tonight? Your life is finite. You have a certain amount of time on this earth. Enjoy it. Go to the best of it. I still get mad about traffic, by the way. Maybe you can tell me why I do that. But there's a real point to this, is that you reach after a real significant traumatic event, you view things through a different lens, and you just sort of keep living, and you realize that so much of what has burdens others is really not that important.
Absolutely. There's no question that trauma is incredibly painful. And, you know, trauma is simply a bad thing, period. But what you're pointing to is the idea that when people survive traumas, often it gets them to look at their life and ask themselves, well, now that I've been through part of the worst that I could possibly imagine, what do I want to do with my life? And people often discover new goals, new opportunities. They make new choices that they wouldn't have made previously. We talk about in the book about a woman named Asha Mevlana, who was a work-a-day businesswoman working at a startup in New York, living a good life of a 20-some-year-old, but kind of an unchallenged life. And then the unthinkable happened to her. At the age of, I believe, around 25, she got breast cancer, a particularly virulent breast cancer, and she thought she was going to die. And you know, flash forward a few years, she's now cancer-free, but what was hardest for her was getting back to her life, because she realized through her ordeal that she could no longer live the life that she was living. She ended up moving to Los Angeles and taking up the electric violin, and a few years later, she's playing with Jay-Z, she's playing on the American Idol band,
That's
she's playing for The Tonight Show. Just incredible transformations.
That's great.
Doctor, what are some of the principles that distinguish those super survivors from people who don't get that, I guess, benefit out of their trauma? I know one of the things that you talk about is in a situation where the trauma has been caused by someone else, being able to forgive that other person.
Absolutely. So forgiveness is a big predictor of people's ability to move forward after trauma. But I think that people often misunderstand what forgiveness is. We talked to a woman whose name was Clementine Weimariah. And Clementine was a teenager, actually, a young girl, and she saw her family killed in the Rwandan genocide. And she narrowly escaped and bounced from UN refugee camp to UN refugee camp. Well, flash forward a few years, she's a graduate of Yale. She's speaking for the UN. She's working alongside Oprah Winfrey at the Leadership Academy for Girls. And we asked her, what helped you to move forward? And she said it was forgiveness. But she said, look, forgiveness is not a gift that you give to the perpetrators. Her perpetrators didn't even know that she had forgiven. She said it was a gift that she gave to herself. The permission to let go of the fear, the anger, the hurt of the past, and to move her sights, to look to the future and begin to put one step in front of the other to set goals and build a better life.
Forgiveness is such a powerful thing. Dr. David Feldman, fascinating stuff. Thank you so much.